In this video, I will demonstrate some techniques that we can utilize to present data in which we wish to highlight a single number, and we want to use text in order to highlight that number. So why highlight a single number? Well, there are cases in which we really need our audience or people to remember is one important number we have calculated or gathered, because the number itself is very impactful and it relates directly to the point that we want to make. So some examples in which we've got an important number that we want to highlight might be, our employees score an average of 65% on the standard operating procedure assessment, or 60% of college students meet this recommendation. So these are situations in which we've got one point we want to make using one single number to make that point, and so we want to emphasize that as we present that particular piece of data. So this situation which we want to highlight a single number is usually used best if we've got a frequency, a mean, a median, or mode, or some kind of a natural ratio that we want to highlight to make our point. So if we have a situation in which we want people to remember one important number, the easiest and most direct approach is to just show them that number. And we make it big and impactful so it has a good visual cue for them that this is an important value or an important number. And so we typically want to put this in text that's really large and interesting font, so it has a nice, interesting visual nature to it. Now, this strategy is really common in infographics, and when we flip through magazines or newspapers, we almost always will see some kind of an infographic that presents a single number that represents an important point that they want to make. So the easiest way to do this is within PowerPoint. And so here's an example of a graphic that uses a single number to make the point. So in this situation, I want to highlight the fact that 7 out of 10 knee injuries, ACL injuries, occur without player-to-player contact. So the important number is this 7 out of 10, and certainly also the fact that these injuries occur within a specific condition. So I constructed this directly in a PowerPoint, and what I did is I created text boxes for each of these elements. So I inserted a text box for the 7, inserted a text box for out and of, and another for the 10, and that way I could manipulate their position relative to one another, and also include different fonts and different colors. So I want the black and the bold text to really stand out, and I want the smaller text and the less bold text of a different color to not be as prominent. And so using this combination of font size, font color, and different interesting looking fonts, I can really have an impactful way to present my message. And again, this is just a single number that I want my audience to relate to and to understand. And so this is a very common way that we can present that particular number. Now, so the large fonts, I picked a kind of a chunky font that had a lot of thickness to it, and I put it in a large font size, 98 font size, and then my smaller fonts or smaller text is of a different font that's maybe a little thinner, not quite as chunky, and I made it about half the size, a font size of about 44. So making this didn't take me long. It took me about 4 or 5 minutes total once I figured out exactly what I wanted to include. And so you can play around with the font sizes, play around with the font types, so you can generate a really impactful visual. Now, the concern as we do this, of course, is to have too many numbers or too many large numbers on the same page. So this can really dilute the impact. So I don't want to have 3 sentences on this slide that address 3 different points. It's really important if we've got a single large number or single statistic or single point we want to make, that we keep it 1 per slide. So if I have another point that's similar to this I want to make, I'm going to put it on a different slide. I don't want to crowd the slide. Now, there is some research to back up the utility of doing this. And some research was done in at the University of Michigan, and what they did is they looked at how people would react to disease prevalence being explained in a pie chart, a bar chart, or using a single large number. And the single large number beat out the other visualizations when it came to the significance and scope of the disease. In other words, the audience understood the message that was being conveyed, and it had a big impact on their understanding of the message. Now, another approach we can use is developing what's called an icon array. And again, this can be made in PowerPoint fairly easily. And though even sometimes single number is more impactful than using some kind of an icon array like this, this visual can also be pretty impactful, because I'm going to use some kind of a shape or some kind of a picture, small picture, to convey my message. And so in this case, I've used hearts to convey the number that I want to explain. And so we can color code them, we can use different shapes, and in this case, the data I want to convey has to do with heart patients. And so using a heart icon is a good way to also give some context to the message that I want to present. And so typically how this is arranged is these icons or these shapes, we repeat them 10, 100, or even 1,000 times, and then some of the icons are color-coded to represent a percentage or frequency or proportion. And so usually only one portion of the array is color-coded, but we can sometimes sneak in multiple colors. We also have to be careful in the icons that we choose. If we try and get too cute with our icons, it can kind of distract from the message that we want to portray. But having an icon that is relatable to the message you're trying to present increases the engagement and the memorability of your slide, and of course then improves the impact. So again, I made this icon array within PowerPoint. So I went to the Insert Shape menu and found the little heart, and then I selected that and pasted it onto my slide. And then I modified the size. I made these size about 8.8. And if you double click on the icon up to the upper right of the menu, you'll find the size option, and you can change the size. And then I copied and pasted it 9 times. I then highlighted all of the 7 of the shapes, so they were all selected, and then changed their fill color to red. And then I changed the last 3 fill colors to gray so that we could get that nice contrast. And then finally I inserted a text box up above the icons, typed my headline in a specific font that was kind of bold and chunky, and color coded the text to the shape color. So the first portion of the text box I color coded red to match with the first 7 hearts, and then the other half of the title I changed to gray to show again that part of the title represents the last 3 icons. And again, this took me about 5 minutes to do. Probably the most time-consuming part was arranging the icons so they were evenly spaced from one another. But again, this is a great way to send an impactful message that is not only visual but presents a single number. Now, researchers also supported the idea that icon arrays can be effective for people to understand things, especially if they have low numeracy skills. And numeracy skills refer to their idea of understanding proportion. So if you told someone if the chance of getting a disease is 15%, how many people would get the disease out of 1,000? People that have a hard time with that seem to respond well to icon arrays because they can actually see the proportions and understand what that proportion actually means. So when you've got a single number that you want to use to convey your message, you can try either of these techniques, and again, you can play around with these and try and be as creative as you can. There's a lot of tools within PowerPoint that allow you to add a lot of different things to these sorts of slides to make your message be impactful. So hopefully you found this information useful, and good luck using these techniques in your own presentation.